Yeah, let me go.
Yeah.
All right, thank you all for being here. This is sort of, as you can see by the room arrangement, as we told you, sort of an atypical CAC meeting. So it's more like a workshop. I think Matt is the one that suggested we do this, right? So it's maybe you should stand up now. So we are here to look at the maps that we've been producing and sharing with you all over the last month or so. And I'll note that on the top is kind of the gap areas map, and then there's a large map underneath that shows zoning designations in the city. To give you that. And then in the 11x17 packet are kind of all the other maps we produced, including there's a map that shows essentially we'll call it population density by census block group area. And then we did, and actually I will take credit in case it's wrong, but I did some really quick mental well, I used a spreadsheet, but not totally calculation, but estimated what I thought the population might be based on the census data for each of those areas, just to give you a sense of like, are some of these areas, do they have a lot of people or some of them not very many? So you kind of get a sense of that on that population density map and the table that goes with it. So for the next kind of however long it takes, I don't know that we'll be here till 7:30 tonight, but if you all are very talkative and have a lot to say and write on the map, then maybe we will. But once we sort of get done with just the intro, and I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time on the service area mapping and gap area review. Maybe we'll say a couple things, but once we get to that point, you all are going to look at the maps and you're going to talk amongst yourselves at your table, and you're going to write down as many notes as you care to write down. And please like write as much as you can, at least enough to like we understand what the message is about things related to these questions that are up on the screen there. So are there aspects of that population or zoning that impacts a gap area that would maybe make it smaller? Like, oh, there's a whole chunk of this that's actually in a commercial or an industrial area. So that gap area maybe doesn't need to look exactly the way it does. Or does it look like there's more population in close proximity to it? That might not change the gap area, the size itself, but it might sort of point towards, hey, this one's really maybe more important because there's a lot of people in it. Are there sort of partner agency facilities, either within the city or on the edges of the facility that might help meet some of the types of park and recreation needs that we've been talking about? Or within homeowners associations. So you'll see on one of these maps that we show the location of homeowner association open spaces. So that, you know, there's a couple areas that have a fair bit of that, and they have in some of those cases, you know, playgrounds or other types of recreation facilities there. So that that might affect again the size or shape of the gap area, or maybe, you know, what we said about the severity of the gap area. And the third question there is, are there any other areas that you think from what you see on the maps or your knowledge of the area or the community that you think could or should be defined as a higher severity gap area? And as kind of a reminder of how we define that for the mapping purposes, it was any area that we'd already identified as a gap area. So a gap area is an area which is lacking close proximity to one of the types of essential services that we map. And that high severity gap area is one that not only is it lacking in those services or proximity to them, but it has at least 3 higher concentrations of the different kinds of equity considerations we looked at. So that was younger people, older people, people with disabilities, people with low incomes, or in this case, we looked at poverty level. And communities of color, thank you. Is there one more?
They're all in the
packets. But so they're all in the map packet, but they were any of the gap areas were the concentrations of people in one of those groups was in the 2 highest sort of concentration levels. So that's how we define the high severity gap. So but you might say, well, oh, I know, it was areas with, higher concentrations of like dense populations or multifamily, essentially multifamily, housing. And the reason we thought about that is a kind of a group that might need more services is because they don't have access to as much private open space. So they depend more on public open space for public recreational. So, yeah, those I think were all of them. So those are the three questions. You don't have to answer them in order. You know, I think it's just, again, look at the maps, look at the main gap area map, look at the zoning map, look at the other maps. Think about just what you know about a given neighborhood or area and put notes. You can either write them on Post-it, which is always helpful, or you can just write notes directly on the map. You can use those pens to like kind of circle an area. We gave you, not for any particular purpose, I don't think, but 3 colors of pens. Did we just have a color coding idea in mind? Yeah. I mean, yes, yes, you can do your own color coding. I don't have it with me, but I have a monthly to-do list and I will color code that with certain colors and symbols that tell me I better get this done right now or tomorrow or whatever. So it's up to you. If you do color coding, just please put some notes that define your color code. And if they don't mean anything, just, yeah, that's okay too. So what else do we need to say?
Most of you were here at our last meeting, so hopefully this is ringing a bell, but there maybe were a couple of you who weren't. So for those of you, like the higher level purpose to this is that we looked through our needs assessment document and our gap areas, which is essentially places in the city where we don't have access to services, which are play for children, sports, trails, and access to nature. So we're trying to figure out areas in the city where we can maybe focus on improvements or focus on improving access to our existing facilities. And that's what we're asking you to take a closer look at right now is like, are these boundaries right? Do we not need this area to be in a gap area because it's actually all industrial land and there's no houses there? So those are the kinds of things that we're asking you to look for.
Yeah, so that we can kind of refine that analysis. And what we may end up doing is, whether I think different things we could do. One, we could look at some of the boundaries of the gap areas or shapes and say, hey, we think this one actually ought to be a little smaller or a little bigger based on some of the feedback. Or we might just include some narrative that says, this was identified as a high severity gap area. Here's some other things that we want to think about. This one was not defined as a high severity gap area, but there are some additional factors that maybe weren't embedded in the census data we looked at or the information we looked at that we should be thinking about. So it'll just help us refine kind of that geographic distribution of gaps in different types of. That's what we're kind of looking for. And Kira listed a couple good examples, a couple other examples we heard during the meetings. One was, well, you know, the play area at this park is on the opposite side of the park. And we looked at access points for the park, not necessarily exactly where the play area is at the park. So that comment was, there's actually maybe a bigger gap area that we had to get extra quarter mile to get to the play area, that edge of the park. So, or gosh, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of topography all over. They have figured, but if there's, you know, places where there's really a lot of topography here, and our proximity map didn't necessarily take into the amount of time to walk up. Doing things are a little on average flatter. So, those are the kind of things, just like examples of things you might know on the map. Does that all make sense? Do you all have any questions about that? And we've got a number of staff folks in the room, and we're all available to answer questions if you have questions.
Do you want to do a quick round things, or does everyone feel like you all know each other?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, just to make sure. We've
Sure.
only met a few times.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Kara Haggard with the City Parks and Recreation Department, project manager for this project.
At AC, MIG consultant.
Jeff Miller, also with the chief. Sarah Ellison, the park coordinator. Lady Taylor, Susan Franklin. Sarah Bianco, transportation advisory liaison. Meg Monsushima with Vinay Krieger, kids in next year, 40 school year. Sarah Raviano, I'm the liaison for sustainability advisory. We had community member holiday, anyway.
Be on the 50+ advisory board. And Brent said it with the planning department.
Can't watch the chair of the library board.
And then again, I'm community member, but also on the park.
And that's easy.
Kevin wrote that.
Very below. Yeah. I'm Brenda Faulkner and I admin support with Kira.
It is administrative professional. So.
All right, any questions before we turn you loose with the maps? Yeah, all right, go to it. And again, I guess if you have questions, raise your hand and one of them. Yeah, and we'll probably roam around a little bit and listen in, so don't, we're not judging or boring you.
Up the street here, and there's really no walking or anywhere close. Gonna be. Yeah. It's really looking at how close. Yeah, the new one.
Right here.
There's really nothing close to that. I mean, they can.
This is.
Yeah, like after, but
Probably right. Yeah, I'm just doing that.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so. I think that we're gonna need to map. It's all very.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, which will be in the city.
Road, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be an area 3 should be removed. I good. We were right. I know. I'm like, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Where the old bus line, the new bus line will be there, and that's where all the commercial sites are. There's like, yeah, there's, some in small industrial park. There.
Yeah.
So there's also the retirement community right up here. Oh, this is the same thing? And there needs to be those little.
Where the building is.
Street. They want a meeting for some reason. But you found out he's not. Because he didn't. He might be.
Well, and it's part of the service. Here, so on. But I don't know what.
The whole area eventually. They're all just in here. You can't really access the river.
No.
Yeah, it's like this weird thing.
Yeah. It's a violence.
Oh, that's what we-
You can walk through it without it, right? Oh, yeah. I mean, and people do, and there's definitely. like-
I play a thing for the access.
Yeah, this area. Around there. The other thing that. Everyone in that area. Right. We're gonna honor.
No, you know, not a city. Very hard.
Right, sometimes these are their own, so that's the stuff that we learned. Yeah, but you know what?
Hey.
Yeah, we had to fight here in the dark.
Yeah, so it's.
That's a problem on,
It's funny because the previous director made them all.
Yeah.
You know.
So, I don't know.
Doing some kind of a mayor study on that, right?
On Lake.
Part of it, good plan. That being good in the department. Up there. Don't know what to do. Really narrow and, just-
Yeah, screwball. You know. Yeah.
Definitely, anything you're saying, you're like. Right.
Well, you already have this one to start, so do we need to add that?
I mean.
Yeah. And you know, there's not good access to any parks around.
Yeah, well. It doesn't make our pain and he went.
Vermont Spring, yeah, it's good right down there. There's street parking on the bench. A lot of trees down on the right.
Yeah. Right now, it's like.
In Vermont Spring, there's trail. Any access to the bike parking? And, there's some maybe then. They have a water.
Yeah.
Oh, please, no. Is this all covered?
Well, I mean, so, yeah, so when we originally looked at these matters, we were just looking at. City would have to go. The reason for that is because we don't have any control over what else does, or if they decide. People don't live in the neighborhood or whatever. Any of those things, we don't have any control over that, so we were going to. But this is one that I think is kind of. Because there's so much.
And then just. Okay. Right, yeah.
Well, that was all. By that, yeah. And they also have all of the materials. So, because none of them are. So, that's the problem. Guys, and these guys are. The very gap area and they're. Yeah, well.
We were all on the beach, you know. Yeah. Yeah. What way going? I would say that we're not worth any way to bring it down and access. They're going to do that in perpetuity. Or they're going to improve it, land development, it's not going to go anyway. So it's pretty guaranteed that this program. My feeling would be that I wouldn't. There were other resources, resources.
In this case.
It's everything. Made a bunch of stuff and maybe.
That.
It's a lady who has, I don't know anything about it. It's not hard, which is different. What is available, what time is it, what has scared Well, I don't want to just.
They are.
10 years ago. Yeah.
Things start to get too busy. Start out great, these are clear. They clear in business, I would even have more left for them.
I would super well served. What do you? So you have like the six. We're going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went accountable. Yeah. Must be more than a quarter mile walk.
Yeah.
Parks that have.
That's where I.
But actually, yeah.
Undeveloped open space. We did.
People things to do. They're violent.
Then what, but, yeah, but if you have to be a.
That's a good place. Thank you. Around by the flood. is a good one.
I think there.
But people go.
I thought.
About the.
Right. They do have access. I didn't have. Math, or like, any of these areas, right along the lake, probably do have access.
Some of them like.
Yeah.
Those down. Right on.
Yeah.
There's a community, there's a big people here with like. Yes. Yeah. We're just- yeah, the big- Yeah. There's a big walk on that. There's a road that can connect really. It's here. It's possible. It's really. I just crossed it out.
Like, yeah, Rick, and put a note on there that says why, got access to the lake. Was there, I mean, I'll maybe remember. I would.
What all I find.
They're George. Yeah.
Park is almost.
Okay.
That area goes all the way.
No.
Yeah, I got that. As far as yeah, we're looking for information. You guys have to make.
Like, that flows right into the river, flows.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to make sure.
And
The other one gets back, and you go, yeah,
for the.
you go there, you know, when they're.
If you want to put that one in the area, put it near football, number 12.
Right. I read.
I was reading that.
Yeah.
It's not identified as a. There's so much going on. It's close to 1 and 12. And you know, more than there. But I think basically, you know, that kind of- It's like it's real super.
Except now.
Another one, you know, there's been a bunch of things to do. There was planning.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, so it's like number 12. That's like, yeah, there's not really a whole lot. Every box that's. Riverside of.
I didn't
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to go on 43.
Yeah.
It takes you down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's, you think it's a good stuff?
Yeah.
So. Around the roof.
You know, we know that there
So they have it around like that.
are, any of the, big round.
There aren't that many.
Pool and.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all pretty.
The one I will listen for residents.
Yeah.
I got area. That also going to be.
Yeah.
Right. Those ones.
No, so this is like.
Yeah.
And everyone has.
They're doing, they cut a lot of trees down. I don't know if it fell.
I don't know, in the lake, where.
Yeah.
Oh, the paper in my
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't live here, so I've never been able to use it.
But it's really nice.
Yeah.
I mean. Especially.
I live in Portland.
In the city?
Yeah.
So far, I've been there a while.
Over by Mount David.
Yeah. Really fun?
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit younger, yeah. It's called Montebello.
So I had to.
Residential, yeah. Health.
Yeah, health is.
This is what's.
Yeah. It's that tiny, like.
It's like tiny part of the school. It's behind the houses, it's kind of linear. Yeah. Kind of like a soccer field for a school, and then it drops down. They've got a playground and small pathway.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But this place over here is.
So I mean, it's a city here. They're building the flag.
Yeah.
And they want
Maybe with the.
I haven't been able to involve it.
Yeah. I'm sure. You're out of the ball. Oh, yeah.
That was pretty more. More I need that if there is you.
5:30.
Well, I mean, if it's a gap, I think this is a legitimate gap. Because this is, some of it's these canal. Because they have access to the lake and they have access to the canal.
Good all. Hard to still count.
There's a lot of large sidewalks.
Yeah, it's our zoning. county. is that?
Like all these residents.
For line and. Oh, that's. Yeah. Women's is in the city, right? Right, so, yeah, anything with the, oh, get that, yeah, dark, sorry, city, but will be in city one. Branding station.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a voluntary program. I'm looking for an expert, we have to connect to sewer.
That is right here.
Yeah. Septic. Sewer, and that's the agreement. It's usually just people that have to. Yeah, they get some of the service, yeah, get the fire,
Yeah.
the life safety services. Yeah. 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 The part of the temper club.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah. Fire mountain. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what can be. Right? Yeah. The milk can.
We look on the link. I don't think I have.
Yeah.
The biggest fan, and I didn't feel part of it. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I totally.
The new, that's brand new one. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well,
Child. And then there's like.
Yeah.
area that they just, they took out a water thing. Now it's just an.
Yeah.
Yeah, just living there and, you know.
When you get to a neighborhood, the only thing you can do is walk under the light. People walk that, yeah, it's just really great.
Yeah.
And I know, I'm sure. Training, wherever.
Yeah, that's something that's great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be there.
Yeah,
I think you
I would
kind of-
get up there. Fight.
with a real-
Or a tiny.
I didn't- Maybe in a private, that'd be one of the private property owners. It wasn't everything on the other side of it all. Yeah. The real, you know, we don't see it.
Yeah, they're.
Rail measure.
Yeah.
The railroad.
Yeah, I probably did it. Did it.
It's totally. That.
But at some point, I tell people that when like they all do it. Don't do that anymore.
Oh.
Yeah. Only one.
Firehouse over,
That's the guy.
because.
I want to do that. The only ones that
And tell you, and they shut down, they can't get across, they built that new. There's no communication. Go faster.
But that's a pretty high.
Yeah, it's not right. With the new development. There has to be something ending.
That section of it.
Yeah, let's do this.
But then they're gonna be. Well, good very.
You can do that for-
I remember, it felt like there was, like, light amount of poverty and people living in poverty there. Mingling population, like disability living there.
With Barry. Yeah. Also. I think there's a lot of. Yeah. And then. We could
Centered over here.
Not on the side. And this is something that I'm going to be able to supply. Supply. And it's really small.
Yeah, it's like all this.
Yeah, the zoning.
Yeah, they're It's. There's so much here.
Yeah, they're around each other. We have. I'm fine to be right there.
And that is something that is great.
They're, came down Mount building, they're remodeling the building. Yeah.
But for now, or we might need more.
Because there's no light at all.
Yeah, so I think there's sort of different strategies that have to do with that. That's what Jeff is looking at. That's real built.
Yeah.
They do actually have a certain kind of access to. So it's a certain time of the day.
Yeah.
About the theme.
Yeah.
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 And.
Not that I think Doc Park, I know, but still, one up to where they're building the aquatic center. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
You know that you, where the homes, you walk, you know what the parking lot. And food. Grass, the whole thing.
Really big area. So what do you say, like, take a property. They're doing that. And Definitely, we didn't have it in front of us. Either like, keep your eyes open. I know that's. Yeah. And sometimes you can always know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a back,
There's a waiting, right?
yeah, I go, it's through the back, I come through the middle of here and you come back through. Yeah, it's an area, it's one of those back roads that you're not. Full of property.
No, because.
And they're looking at new.
Yeah, I got it.
You have to go to the back way on the, yeah.
Yeah, this sort of vision. Well, love of the vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're pretty good.
You know, those already. That all down for multifamily, like,
They have.
that, like a dead zone for multifamily.
Could be, yes, could be, right? Good.
You address. That.
Yeah.
When we have a living.
There's nothing forward, they've been mixed use. Yeah.
Cause all those apartments kind of keep behind. And thing on the other side, like.
Good, how are you?
Yeah, there's the senior living, there's at least one or two back for a little part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always run into somebody that on a wheelchair on the side of the road. Because there's no real sidewalk, so they're rolling a wheelchair down the side of the road, which is super dangerous. With a cigarette in hand.
What do you think of what's through there? Kind of wonder what. It's commercial land. It's mixed use commercial here, commercial DRD, which is campus research and development. And higher. The rest of them. There's not really a whole lot.
Yeah, there's not.
Here, the view of the shopping center.
Yeah.
I only see.
No, that's.
I don't think there's a lot of. Home.
This is what's the.
There's a big change in there's the.
Yeah.
You went to, the two hotels, the old, yeah, where the old. Yeah. Just like the old park.
One second. Several.
But that's back, and so there's really nothing back in there for. Yeah, that would be
There's no.
Player, see where that.
Twenty to 35% senior.
From the state of the trail, but you can't go in. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're able to do anything. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those are, they were.
Yeah.
It must be, basically, they might be able to. There's also a great. Yeah, there's gonna be limited, yeah.
And that's what.
This is a pretty. Good, I didn't say. That's fine.
That'd be fine. Oh,
We can look back. It's cold. Yeah.
Well, and then. Where they're doing, Laura, about. If they're gonna have them out there, they keep them in the building.
I agree.
Yeah, totally.
It has to be, it has to be.
Yeah, they got rid of it, not there. It's still right. Every time. The noise. Like it's some of these.
yeah.
With the talk of, you know, like, probably yeah.
No, I think-
Before any. And they were like doing it for years.
It's so early. We wouldn't want to do it. Wait, so that's where we get the county, this is the county.
Right. And we have very high.
We have a review on, yeah. You know, walking like.
I know somebody.
Yeah. And when you get to the bottom. Of the it's then you use your boat.
Yeah.
You just go out down there and you're done, you get friends like that. Like it's good, think your boat, you know, take your boat up, you just put it around. 13. We can't get it down. Yeah, well. They're quick about that.
In there.
They go for it. Well. Yes. Yeah. You can't do a lot of big board. Yeah, we do. We do it that. I know some of the large homes that are not, you know, like single story. Yeah, they get but it's sort of like this. It's all kind of new.
It's very high. Percentage.
A lot of this is where the,
Yeah.
this is where the, wine, yeah, no, they have weddings and wine. What's the name of that, Rose?
Oh, that's, yeah.
Because that would be further.
That's very. Wait a minute. This is. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so on the other side, so people, okay, so this is where it's very. Yeah. Yeah.
Or
or this neighborhood.
And that drops down into City Spring. That steep, steep road. Okay,
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like.
And there's nothing, because there are quite a few.
This property.
But maybe that was pretty more.
Yeah, there is really, three parts over there. Three ponds, like, really small. Yeah. Pretty much like halfway to the box, right on There's a lot of places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's near the school?
What's your favorite part?
Oh, isn't it? Yeah. We all have, we all gave you go, Brian.
Here.
Well, the.
Right from Oak Parkway, driving all around towards BC Street. Yeah.
But yeah.
The neighborhood drive to campus. Smaller than Pine.
So like here, you couldn't say.
No, they.
What's that? No, the reason why the reservoir demand. Doesn't have a lot of
Not.
crap, right? Because there are playgrounds. The big, huge difference.
There's kind of a lot of good parking lot. There's really a quality to.
Read that.
Around the school that I'm
Playground.
Yeah.
There's a playground in the school.
Right on that.
This is different. Wow, I think a lot of. Yeah. I'm lost. Find your way around.
Oh, I know that. Okay, it's a little tiny part.
We have a project.
Yeah, there's not much there. Yeah, and it's kind of going flat area around. That, yeah, yeah. And it's,
One more. Or I. So. One of the things about the big block area is not much for the big one, it's because the hot block area can extend. The height is. There's the outline where.
yeah, I think that's a good idea. All those homes homes are basically. It's not an easy.
Like I'm on the ship now.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah, I know, yeah. Oh, good. Argument. Like a lot of roads. Even more in the city, in the state. Maybe it's report.
Are there?
Oh, so you're saying. So, yeah. But I know I want back. Maybe even. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So it's water, it's not.
We just had. It's like, yeah. Yeah.
Just because. We don't know.
I do.
No, I didn't. Mine's just not letting me see my own.
I don't.
It's Bill, knowing that.
Why is that considered? But there are certain things.
So, it's like, open. They'll add it, and then when we're together, we
Wanted to get.
waterway or.
You did high water. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not, I made it. The town. But the lake is going.
I'm doing everything on time.
You know what? We're talking about. I know this makes. It's arguing about. Like. I love it. Sure, you should think about how.
She lived in the airport. No idea, like, why is it being drained when I. Any information.
So people could work on their thoughts. Yeah, like maybe so. They could never put on the line.
There's a whole, I think they do make, they do lower. This was like 3 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. Hard to believe it's someone would build up in there, yeah.
I don't know too, I'm with you recently that I didn't. There was.
Well, a lot of those. Yeah, the ground's like, this is solid. Like highline, then you drill it down and.
Wow.
Yeah, but you can't, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's figure down the.
Yeah. So that may, we're gonna say. Yeah.
So it's- yeah. But- But I want to live by the way. I can't do it like that. No one was on the way. And then everyone decided. I'm like a lucky way.
Yeah.
Wonder what.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, never been on.
Used to before they.
Yeah.
It's not that, no, someone. That's good.
Yeah.
The old house. Oh. Okay. Oh, wait. The whole hospital? Well, it was originally happening. Oh, really? And now it is yeah. Yeah. We have the changes. It's pretty really fun. You can I play? Yeah. Okay. Remember.
Yeah. All right. How's everybody doing? Pretty good? We'll do like short report back from each table. We don't need to hear like all the things that you pointed out, but I guess if you have any sort of overarching comments or big picture themes you noted or questions for us, maybe just take a couple minutes each table and tell us that. We're gonna make you go first, just because I'm looking at you. Sorry. Pick a spokesperson. And yeah, just a couple minutes, just kind of, again, overarching things.
So we mostly went through and made some of the gap areas smaller and identified places within gap areas that we thought were more high severity of need areas. Should I actually talk about some of the specifics?
Not too many,
Okay.
maybe one or two, just because I don't want to, if every group does that, we'll be here till 8.
So one, we spent some
But a
time
couple
on
examples.
in number 3, we know that there's some low income housing going up by Habitat for Humanity, and despite the fact that a lot of the rest of it is industrial, we felt it's pretty important to put something in that area. There's our area focus.
Perfect. Yeah, and thank you. I see lots of notes everywhere, so that's awesome. With you all doing that. So again, just, a couple overarching themes or examples of things you noticed.
Things like, the gap areas maybe needed to be, expanded. Questioned about before, that looks like Mountain Park, they have a lot of amenities built in. So maybe we need to have like tiny, or something over in an everywhere area. Something going on over there that would impact what, partnering with, recognize that there are some barriers, like roads, like Highway 43 or parking zone barrier, things that might impact, things impact people being able to get the car. Like, what do you think of
Just considering that maybe blending some mapping together, like the poverty with the multifamily housing and looking at it maybe in a little different way than purely map by map.
Okay, yeah, cool, all right, awesome. Yeah,
For us too, there was a couple sections, number 4 Mountain Park and 14 Mary's Woods. Those are privately owned areas, so the city couldn't necessarily build parks there even if we wanted to. So I think those, even though they're identified as high needs and with gaps, there's not really a lot that we can probably do at this point easily. One of the things we thought we did do kind of a good bang for our buck is right in number 3 and also over by number 10, we saw if there were some sidewalks that were built, it would be a lot easier for those residents to easily get to the nearby recreation area. So that we were kind of recommending those two particular areas. And also in number 3, also, as you pointed out, there's more housing going here and a lot of young families and stuff. So we thought maybe that would be a good area for the city to kind of keep an eye on the property that goes up for sale and see if there's ever an opportunity to build a little playground something somewhere in.
awesome. All right. So in terms of just kind of next steps, we're gonna take all of this information. If we have to call any of you, if that's your handwriting, we'll do that, probably won't. It looks pretty good, I think I could decipher most of it. And kind of weave this into some potential, I think a couple of things. One, look at, do we need to modify maybe the shapes or sizes of some of these gap areas to reflect what y'all had to tell us? And then in addition, just note some of the factors that we need to be considering in terms of the relative severity or need of different areas, just all of the things you've been talking about today. So that's kind of one of our next steps, is to do that. We are also in the process of starting to identify some kind of initial or preliminary recommendations, not so much like put exactly a new play area here, but in looking at these gap areas and looking at the needs assessment document that we presented to you at the last meeting, what are some strategies? And some of them are some of the same types of things you talked about, you know, one saying, well, in some of these areas, there are actually some recreational opportunities or facilities, and maybe that's not as big of a gap area, or in these other places, yes, better connectivity from an area to the facilities that exist, or in this area, it shows as a gap area, but there is a school nearby, and making sure there's a strong partnership between the city and the school district is one way to think about some of those gaps, to a degree. So we're starting to put together some initial thoughts or concepts. We're gonna take those to staff and have a workshop with staff in May. And then ultimately take some of those same ideas and just questions to people out to this set of neighborhood meetings starting in the last Friday in May 31st. And then so there's gonna be 4, 1 then and 3 in June, and get more feedback. So kind of more information coming to you about all those things. Say when you see whatever you see, social media or the city's website or posters in the park, like strongly encourage your friends and neighbors to attend those events. They'll all be in parks. And we will try to make them, because this is a parks and recreation process, as fun as we can. And by that I mean Carol will make them as fun as you can. Yeah, popsicles and games. So, yes.
Do the engagement thing, then you get the popsicle.
Yeah. So all of those things are coming up, and those will all be used then to refine recommendations and make them frankly more specific. So that's what we've got happening over the next couple of months.
And
What
we-
else? What did I do that?
We haven't a couple of months. I think what we could do with this map, just to kind of close the loop with you guys, is we'll take it and work it, and then I'll send it back to you via email. And if you have any major comments or concerns, you can just send those back as written comments. But right now, we're not planning on meeting again until August. But I really hope that all of you come to the neighborhood workshops. They really are gonna be fun. May 31st, June 7th, June 21st and June 28th. And so we're kind of doing them in different quadrants of the city. So May 31st is at Pilkington Park. Kind of capture that area. June 7th is going to be at Westlake Park. June 21st will be at Azalea Field. And then June 28th will be at Foothills. And you can totally come to the one, you can come to all of them, or you can only come to one, or come to the one that's closest to you, or your favorite park, or whatever. But we're super excited, so definitely, if you're in town, come and see us there, and encourage your friends, and family, neighbors to come as well. Yeah.
When is our body?
I don't know that we planned.
Yeah.
Let's see if we
Put that
picked a
in.
specific date.
Oh,
It's gonna
maybe you
be-
did.
Did I pick a date?
I don't- You picked a number of dates for things.
I will pick a date for
That'd
that,
be
and,
fun.
I'll follow up, with an email about that upcoming date. It's, we still got it months out. I don't know that I thought that far ahead, Patrick. But I'll send that date, and then I'll send the neighborhood workshop dates, and I'll send the follow-up for this map.
Cool. Other questions?
Can I do a shameless plug?
Absolutely.
Tomorrow night is LO Reads at Lake Ridge High School. So there are about 50 tickets, and I've arranged, if you all are interested in coming for 7 p.m. We've got the author coming, so just come to the door. You can see me at the table, the Lake Ridge Library Advisory Board table. So if you're interested in coming, or if you want to bring a friend, please do. We'd love to have you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. You're gonna get 11 minutes of your evening back. But thank you for all your hard work tonight. Yeah.